Well, Tesla's hit some major milestones this year, but it's not surprising to everyone. Specifically, Tesla Herbert, who predicted all of them with more to go. I'm Brian. Welcome to my Tesla Weekend. So Tesla Herbert is fairly well known on Twitter for his analysis, his weekly live hangouts with some amazing guests, and now his YouTube channel where he interviews some of the biggest names in the Tesla universe. All that's going to be linked in the description. Welcome, Herbert, and thank you for taking the time.
Hey, Brian. Hey, guys. Thanks, everybody.
What a fun week it's been. So you've got this milestone list that you put out in what, December?
January, very early
You put it out
January
in
of
January.
2022. Yeah.
So you've got this list of all these things that should happen with roughly when they'll happen. How did you come up with the list?
Yeah. Well, let's go back to memory lane. Let's remember what it was like last year in June. June, the stock price was around 600, and it skyrocketed, as we all remember, to pass $1,000 in December, and even past to January. Remember those good old days?
Yeah, I do.
So I am a long-term investor. I've been investing since 2012. But, I started in Twitter only in October of last year. So it was getting quite frothy. Everybody was very, very excited. And remember the 12/9 conspiracy, and everybody was so excited to anticipating a stock split announcement on 12/9, December 9th.
I do remember.
So October, I started getting involved with Twitter. I started to get to know all the key people. And a bit about my background, I'm a product manager. I'm a 3-time startup founder. So for me, I'm always thinking about the products and the features and the milestones. That's just what's happened. So that's just my makeup. I'm very excited about Tesla, the mission, Tesla, the company, and then, of course, like all of us, the products that they're rolling out. And as we know, Tesla is just one of those amazing companies, right? Once in a generational kind of company with so many things going on. So around late December, as New Year's was coming, and I had already started to tweet and I started to get to know all the key members, I created a list, just a quick thing on a simple tweet, right, of all the things that was upcoming in the year, because I'm excited for 2022. So remember at that time, it was Tesla Semi, Cybertruck, the stock split was going to happen, Tesla insurance. There was a list of 7 or 8 items that we were all quite excited. And so I tweeted it out, just a normal, regular tweet. And then I realized after I sent that out that there was a lot more to add to that list. So once you get started, just create a small little list, it builds. And then I created a small little table with about 8 to 10, I don't remember how many exactly, but just a short list. And I sent that table out. And I immediately got, so this was first week of January, New Year's already happened. And I immediately got just a great number of responses from all these Twitter community people saying, oh, you got to add this, you got to add that. Mm-hmm. And then when I then created a list of about 21 different items that we're going to all be very excited about for the next year, 2022. That table just went crazy. And this was coinciding with, early January. Everybody's so excited about what's going to happen in the future. We were hitting the all-time high in the stock. Everybody was, jumping on and really wanting to hear catalysts that was happening. And so that's sort of how that all started.
Were there any things that you thought about putting on the list that didn't make it?
I did, yeah, there were. Actually, you're making me go back to memory lane, but I actually created, there was a bunch of items. I'm trying to see if I can find in my old notes here, but I did not. Oh yeah, so I actually have an other milestones table that I never released.
Stretch goals.
These are stretch goals. So these things would include things like that I didn't add: Tesla Solar, India announcement, 4680 in 2 or more sites, which I eventually did bring it back in. Fleet wins like taxi, police, rental cars, the right to repair, vehicle to grid enabling auto bidder. So you can just goes on and on and on.
Sure. So let's take a look at the actual milestones. Your first one there, Q4, 308,000 vehicles delivered. And I'm assuming that you guessed that before the quarterly numbers were out.
Yeah, so just to be clear, my goal with these milestone lists is not that I'm trying to predict and I'm trying to be accurate in my predictions. It is a combination of a lot of very smart people and my, kind of research into the space of what the expected dates are to come and which milestones are coming next. And so it's not about me predicting, it's just more about letting people know what is the next thing. And like, for example, we're going to be talking about this shortly, but when is the stock split going to, or was it announced? When is it now going to be approved? And when is it going to actually happen? These are just blips and tweets, and I collect that information from the smartest people like Gary Black and others. And I just, and I also talk to people about and gather their opinions of what they think they let most likely. And if it doesn't happen, and if it changes, I will change the list. So it's not about prediction, just more about here's a way to keep track of everything and what's most likely to happen upcoming.
So while Tesla Herbert is on the record saying he's not a time traveler or psychic in any way, I reserve the right to disagree, but we'll see.
We'll see. We'll see. But
So
you're correct. Almost all of this is being hit on track. There are definitely a few that I had to move as plans change and so forth. I'm not saying that it's going to be perfectly accurate,
sure.
but it's a good list.
So
And it's continuing to build. So
what was your objective for Q4's deliveries versus actual?
So the key point about the list is that is a milestone list, and these are the catalysts that are significant enough that's going to impact the business and the stock. So there's a lot of other activities that occurred that I don't add in here, and so adding in the Q4 the quarterly earnings results is an absolute one of the most correlated to impacting the stock, right? One of the other tables I've created that had great traction with like 10,000 plus likes and went viral was this one where I show in graphical form that if you're looking for things that impact the daily movement of stock, it's typically consumer sentiment. The quarterly movements are yes, you might get product announcements and kind of company news, might move it in the next 3 months. But to move a stock for the year, it's going to be the earnings and the fundamentals, right? So, showing and I went back and I researched what happened in the last several years for Tesla specifically. And you look at all the different big things that happen. Surprisingly, Elon's tweets affect the stock maybe by a day or two, maybe a week, but that's it. But you will see huge jumps, like massive kind of like exponential jumps in the stock over the next several months after they do quarterly reports, right? And specifically because in the last 2 years, they're ramping up. They're becoming a real company, right? They if you look back at 2020 and the Q4, and they're barely trying to, 2019, 2020, they're barely just starting their factories. But as they release the quarterlies, they're showing that I can actually produce cars in scale and moving forward. So the Q4, 308,000 vehicles was a massive, important number. And if you guys go back to memory lane again, when January came out, then the print number came out in the first 2 days of January. This was just shocking to everybody that they were able to produce this many cars. The year before, they produced 180,000 in fourth quarter of 2020. So they basically, not quite, but 2/3, like almost closer to double production. And most importantly, it just blew away the estimates, right? What everybody was thinking it was going to be 253,000, and they came out with 308,000, and I think that was a big shocker for everybody.
So the 2020 figure was absolutely incredible. 500,000 produced, and here we are just a year later, 308,000 in 91 days.
Yeah.
92 days.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that's pretty ridiculous. Tesla insurance in 5 states. Well, we blew right past that, didn't we?
It was. So again, this was a nice, very nice kind of milestone for Tesla. They were talking about it, and people were not really that excited about insurance. They don't kind of measure the impact of insurance. There's the impact of insurance as a business, but there's also the impact of Tesla insurance in terms of creating a new value proposition for Tesla against its competitors. So we all kind of see the signs now that you're not likely going to have to pay for a car outright with cash anymore. Eventually, they're going to move to a subscription model, and then they're going to bundle in the insurance and the kind of the financing, and you'll start paying monthly for all of these goodies like an Amazon Prime solution. But so Tesla Insurance came out, and they had dabbled with it with California. They had a couple states they were starting to move, but then by January 20th, the idea was, can you have 5 states? Can you have 5 states? And they hit that in January 20th, right? And then they had announced at that time that they're going to expect to have all states. They're going to do their best. It's basically limited by regulation. So today, they're now, as you pointed out to me just last week, that Nevada joined the list of states, and there's now 9 states that are included. So I think we were expecting to have 8 states by the first quarter of 2020. So I think there was a delay. But to have 9 states by June, I think it's still pretty amazing. And I think we're going to see a ramp up over the next several quarters as well.
And like you said, insurance regulations are state by state, right, and sometimes very sticky. And it's a lot of hoops to jump through.
Yeah, I live in Washington State, in Seattle, right? Seattle, Washington. And the paperwork for Tesla insurance in Washington State was already submitted even before January of this year. And so I had fully expected that we were going to be part of the next three that was announced by January, and we weren't. And now it's June, and we're still not there. So, but we were ready, and so it's a matter of time before Washington will join. And so I think it's like a domino effect. Once you get these 9 in place, the rest just fall, and then they'll just copy and paste. Yeah.
So the stock split upcoming, that's an easy one to check off.
Yeah, well, you're jumping list there, I think, right?
Oh, sure. Giga Berlin. So supercharger EVs, sure. So supercharger EVs, yeah. 2 more countries.
Yeah. So this was the concept here was right. So they had just announced, Tesla, that they're going to open up the superchargers to not just be for Teslas, but all EVs, right? And they had announced that they were going to. They already had one at that time. They had the Netherlands. That was the first one that they were going to do, and I had put in a milestone that by the first quarter of 2022 they'll expand beyond the Netherlands and add on 2 more countries, right? Well, we all know now that they actually blew through that as well. And I think the Tesla supercharger, I'm trying to find the list here. Oh yeah, here it is. But they're now in 13 today, European countries.
Wow.
Yeah. So at that time in was it January 31st, they already added 2 more countries. And so we hit that off. That was check mark. But today we're at 13. So clearly almost all of Europe, you can basically, they've opened up to any EV can use a supercharger. They're going to do that in the US as well. But I think that that's a milestone, right? Because it is a fundamental shift in their business model. And that's just going to allow all cars to see it a Tesla, to use a Tesla supercharger, to most importantly, to use Tesla's app. Right?
That's the key. You've got the data. You can advertise them. You know who they are. You know how much they drive. Data is the key.
It's the key.
There's no Ford app. Not that anyone is required to use.
And when you do car sharing and you want to call a Tesla Uber version of it, you're going to use Tesla's app. So
the app is the key. I haven't heard many people talking about that.
Exactly.
Because it's a very small revenue center in terms of profit per kilowatt hour. Not enough to really justify it, but it doesn't have to be.
It doesn't have to be. And I actually, if again, as a product manager, you're watching for these small little tiny features that are being added occasionally. It's not a blip to anybody. We're going, oh, that's pretty cool. But if you add up all the features, what you're watching happening is basically the ride sharing capabilities. All right. These little tiny features add up to this ability for you to call a car, to have the car tell you, if to open up the car, unlock the car without you just using your phone. Just every little tiny feature adds up to something like that. You can see it happening.
It's different than anyone else.
Yeah.
So there's a little factory in Europe. Something's going on with that. What's that about?
Which one was this one? Oh,
Giga
Giga
Berlin?
Berlin, the little factory in Europe.
Yeah, a little. I think they make cars or something there. I'm not sure. Is
Yeah,
that a
so that
catalyst?
was yeah, that was obviously the big, that's why we were all excited on January, right? We were going, I can't believe it. We're so excited. Giga Berlin's about to be approved. Giga Texas is about to be approved. We all were very pins and needles, and we're very kind of disappointed in how long it was taking the government of Germany to approve, and they kept delaying, kept delaying. But we knew it was going to happen. But it was one of those things where it was kept pushed off and kept pushed off, and then all of a sudden it happened. And so we were all shocked that it actually opened. And then there was that threat, if you remember that, oh, they're not going to pass the water regulation and they're going to shut it
Tear
down
it
again and not
down.
approve.
When you say we knew it was going to happen, you and I knew it was going to happen. I imagine most people watching this, but there were still very serious voices saying they're going to have to tear it down. And that was, to me, never going to happen.
Well, yeah, but it is true. Never underestimate the bureaucracy and the red tape. And I think that they, definitely it was delayed, right? As we all know, how long it took for Berlin to come out. But for Berlin to launch was significant, right? Because they had to go through all of those red tape to make it happen. There was a giant party that was held. So this was huge. What kind of makes me a little disappointed is that in January the price of the stock was at 1200, as we all remember at reminisce on. And now we have the two gigafactories, running and launched, and yet the price is not reflecting it. You know what I'm saying? It's like one of those things where you're like, I don't understand the world.
The market is irrational. And that's why I don't deal with any kind of short term options or anything.
Right.
I
I
can
agree.
tell you with confidence where Tesla will be in 5 or 10 years, but I
Exactly.
can't tell you with any confidence where the market will be in 5 days.
Exactly. And that's part of what this milestone is, right? It's not about you guessing that after that milestone that it is a true catalyst, that it will actually see a jump in the stock. It's more about take a look at all these things that are happening in the entire year. Put them all together and then create the next list for the next year. And then as you check them off, eventually the stock will have to kind of match and without you can't you can no longer have a stock at $500 when you're producing 2 million cars and having that revenue and earnings, right? So
That covers Berlin and Texas launches.
yeah.
Stock split upcoming. That's been
Right.
voted on
So
or is about
we
to be.
were all expecting 12.9. We were all. I actually believe in that conspiracy theory. Did you, Brian? Were
No,
you?
no,
No.
no. And we kept getting questions about it on the live shows, and we're like, no, no. And then Elon was asked, and he's like, if there is, I don't know about it.
I
How
know,
deep does
but
this conspiracy go?
okay. Well, I still believe it, and the reason is there's just way too many kind of coincidences. Okay. And I think what happened was, and maybe we will, or maybe we'll never find out in the future. But I think what happened was because Adam kind of revealed it, and then all the shareholders kind of, were all anticipating it. He had to back off, otherwise there would be SEC lawsuits all over again, right?
Okay, that's fair. That's not irrational.
Anyways, so we were all expecting it to happen. It's one of those funny things. We were all thinking it was going to happen, and then we realized no, it's not going to happen anymore. And then it finally happened. So I called it upcoming because that was when they basically hinted that they were going to do it, and then Now we just heard recently last month that it was going to be 3 for 1, and then you'll see that we've added other milestones for the actual shareholder meeting is when they'll approve it. And then 3 weeks later, so that's August 4th is shareholder meeting. 3 weeks later, on August 22, that's when we'll see the stock split. So we'll talk about that when we get there.
Sure. Q1 earnings with record revenue on 4/20. Nice.
Yeah. So another exciting day where we saw incredible record revenues. And so now I have this other chart that I created that kind of like lists out kind of what's happened since 2020 and every quarter. And pretty well every quarter since 2020, it's just been record revenue, record earnings, record, even the stock price it's going up. The PE ratio is continued to go down. And so it's all green at that point. Now, you and I know, many of your viewers know, that's not what's going to happen this quarter, unfortunately. So we're going to see a blip. But I was trying to show that we are in record territory. The Q4 was crazy. Q1 is crazy. Unfortunately, COVID hit for Q2.
Yeah, there's always the act of God element in forecasts.
Good point. Yeah. But, again, it's a member of my comment earlier, right? We all know the quarterly earnings is what changes analyst estimates. It's what changes the future projections, and then therefore their price estimates of what they think it will be. And that's where the PE ratio is based off, right? So it's so critically important every quarter. And the good news about this upcoming quarter is that it's actually built into the price now. And I don't think that when this quarter comes out that it's going to actually see a drop. In fact, everybody's already looking at Q2, Q3, Q4. And so what really matters when this quarter kind of earning happens, January, February, March, April, May, June. So in July 20th, when they have their quarterly earnings, it's when they say it's their guidance. If they give good guidance and say, hey, I think Q3, Q4 is going to be record and it's going to be, certain numbers, that's what's going to drive the stock.
Great. Mega factory battery plant in California.
Yeah. So Tesla Energy is kind of a sleeping giant. We all know that Tesla is not just a car company, they're an energy company. And energy, as we all know, is the massive behemoth, right? The largest company in the world is a gas and oil company, right? Aramco. And Elon just recently said, didn't he, that the day that Tesla is worth more than Saudi Aramco, then that's when you'll know that we've finally transitioned, right? We're finally on our way. But Tesla Energy is so exciting, but they've, right, in the last several years, you feel like you haven't heard anything about solar, you haven't really heard about energy. They're redirecting all their manufacturing of any kind of batteries to the cars. So this mega pack factory in Lathrop, California broke ground in September 2021. So I was waiting for it to be announced that it's going to be actually live, this mega pack factory. So this mega pack factory, what they do is they create these mega packs, right? And these mega packs is what powers kind of the utility scale kind of energy storage. So this is where utilities can actually store solar, wind, and those kind of energy. So what happened was I was waiting for this announcement and I didn't even hear about it. I didn't hear at all that it happened. And eventually Omar told me that, it was in the earnings report. It was embedded in one of line items. Oh, by the way, we're now live, the Megapack battery. So I was kind of like shocked that it wasn't an actual big announcement. But again, they're kind of keeping a low profile. But these kinds of moves like this is massive for the company. And you'll see why when we get to the next milestones coming down later. That's where it gets really, really exciting.
So the last one in terms of ones done, Giga Shanghai additional factory.
All right. So when we all heard Elon say that when he announced that he's going to do a Master Plan Part 3, right? And then he said it's about extreme scale, right? And so everybody is talking about that there's going to be two new gigafactories, one or two new gigafactories launched this year. And he had already kind of hinted that we won't be able to select the locations and won't be able to make that announcement till later half of 2022. I still personally believe that it's going to be way past just two gigafactories. I think it's going to be 3, 4. And so when they said, okay, and when I say a new gigafactory, by the way, I don't also mean just it's got to be a brand new, net new location. I think expansion of Texas, expansion of Shanghai, even the expansion of Giga Berlin, there's all kind of, I think that that's part of it, right? So in Giga Shanghai, they made an announcement they're going to expand it. And it's actually a totally different location. It's far away, but they're still calling it Giga Shanghai. And it's going to double the production of Giga Shanghai. I think they're at 450. It's going to be 450 additional vehicles. And then maximum, it's going to be 1 million each. So they'll be able to do 2 million cars each in the Giga Shanghai, which is actually 2 facilities. So, yeah.
Well, the nameplate capacity of 450 is laughable on its face, considering their run rate at the end of last year was 920 or something.
Yeah.
And yeah, when they first bought that land, we looked at it, all of us looked at it and said, that's too much land, my friend. That's too much. Not nearly enough. And yeah, they don't have to go to whole new countries to expand. And boy, we've seen how quick they can get stuff done in Shanghai. So it is, without a doubt, a catalyst for growth.
Oh, it absolutely is a huge one. And, in the interview that Elon said that he did with the Tesla Owners Club of Silicon Valley guys, he said that, these 2 factories, Berlin and Texas, are just bleeding money, right? They're just, doing everything they can to try to die. And he needs to try to spend all of his efforts to try to make them succeed. So with that kind of comment, I can see why they're still kind of, with the supply chain disruptions, the chip shortages, they're still really focused on trying to improve those factories. So maybe that's why we haven't heard announcements. But I just keep thinking if extreme scale, and imagine when Elon says extreme scale. Elon says extreme scale. What does that mean? It's got to be not just 1, 2 factories. And I've got this whole thing about the factories is the product. And so I don't know if you want to go there or we want to touch that later.
We will save that for part 2. I did just want to say that Berlin has recently ramped to 1,000 cars a week. So even if they're making 20,000 a car, that's only 20 million a week in profit on a $2, $3, $4 billion factory. You can see why they're bleeding money.
Yeah.
20 million goes real quick when you've got that many people there. Yeah. So this is part 1. We're going to do part 2. It'll be coming up in a few days, maybe a week. But for us, it's going to happen right at the same time. So what did we miss or misunderstand? Let us know in them comments below. And thanks to my Patreons. Check out Tesla Herbert. I've got his Twitter all over this page. I've got his YouTube channel somewhere here as well. I'll probably just put it right over my own face. And stay tuned, stay juicy. And I can't wait to hear from you guys in part 2.